Mrs. Puff might just be the most controversial character in the entire SpongeBob universe. Her existence sparked debate. Her story inspired criminal conspiracy theories. And now, a growing number of fans just want her gone. A woman so unlucky, so psychologically ruined by this show, it's almost hard to tell whether the writers want us to feel bad for her or just laugh at her pain. But how did we even get here? How did a background boating teacher become a walking controversy, you might ask? Well, to understand that, we have to go back, way back to the earliest season of SpongeBob. Mrs. Puff debuted early in the series, introduced as SpongeBob's boating school teacher. It's mainly a comedic setup from the writers so they could make the plot include a school setting without fully committing to a school show. Because after all, SpongeBob is a fry cook, not a high school boy. But even back then, this seemingly harmless lady was already stirring up mild controversy. And not always for the reasons the creators probably expected. Her name alone, Mrs. Puff, sparked a debate online. Wait, her name you say? Yeah, it's crazy, right? So here's where it gets weird. We all know her as Mrs. Puff, and it's not hard to guess where the name comes from since she is a pufferfish, right? Except, apparently not everyone saw it that way. The thing is that back in the late 90s and early 2000s, the word puff was also slang, often derogatory, for gay men, especially in older British and American circles. It isn't mainstream anymore, sure, but it was at the time. On its own, this might have passed as a weird coincidence. But this was also the exact same time SpongeBob's own identity was under the spotlight. When SpongeBob first came out, there were actual media debates. Articles, panel discussions, public complaints from groups like the American Family Association. Some conservative voices accused the show of pushing a gay agenda, even though SpongeBob never even talked about romance. Well, except for bromance stuff. Lots of bigger media like the BBC were covering it as early as 2002. Quoting, "The show itself has been an icon with the gay community, according to the Wall Street Journal. SpongeBob's innocent optimism, soft personality, and bright, camp world have endeared him to gay men," the journal said. The journal even described SpongeBob as holding hands with his pink best friend, living in a pineapple, and getting driving lessons from a teacher called, yep, Mrs. Puff. And suddenly, this innocent fish teacher was caught in the crossfire of a larger cultural conversation. Now, to be clear, was the name intentional? Probably not. Mrs. Puff was most likely just a pun, the same way Larry the Lobster is a pun, or even Sandy Cheeks. But it didn't matter. In a media climate full of moral panic and culture wars, even the most harmless detail became a target. And Mrs. Puff, of all characters, found herself dragged into the headlines simply for existing next to SpongeBob. Which is kinda wild when you remember what her actual job is. Because at this point, we haven't even touched the real controversy. Over time, her character got darker, stranger, and by the time we hit the later seasons, something about her just didn't feel right anymore. She became a symbol of failure, of trauma, of someone trapped in a job they can't escape, or a show that won't let her go. And what happened next? Well, that's when the real rabbit hole begins. Mrs. Puff's lore was never supposed to be this deep. Really, if you go back to her debut in Season 1, it's pretty clear. She's a side character. A joke delivery system, nothing more. She was written in to solve a simple problem. How do we do school jokes in a show about a working sponge? Simple. Add a boating school. Add a teacher. Throw in a few gags about driving tests. Boom. Problem solved. And for a while, it worked. She was funny, relatable, the stressed out adult constantly overwhelmed by a student who just won't listen. We laughed with her, we laughed at her, but as the seasons went on, she started becoming a punching bag. A woman stuck in the same class year after year, slowly breaking under pressure. Episodes started opening with her in fear. Jokes stopped being about SpongeBob failing and started being about her suffering. The boating school didn't evolve, but she did. Or maybe she unraveled. You start noticing things. She's always anxious, always sweating, always on the verge of a mental breakdown. Every time SpongeBob walks through her door, she looks like she's about to lose a year of her life. Every episode ends with her in the hospital, in jail, or in a straight-up mental collapse. But here's where it gets weird, because unlike Squidward, who is also tortured, Mrs. Puff doesn't bounce back. Squidward gets angry, screams, goes home, Wakes up miserable, sure, but he resets by the next episode. Mrs. Puff doesn't reset. Every failure with SpongeBob stacks on top of the last one. Every jail sentence chips away at who she used to be. You can literally track her psychological decay across the seasons. And the wild part? None of this was planned, because this wasn't some character arc. It's the accidental result of using the same joke for 25 years. And once the fans started noticing it, that's when the real controversy started. People start questioning who she was before SpongeBob, what she ran from, who she might have hurt. Remember how Mrs. Puff once said this?
I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name. No, not again.
At first, it sounds like a throwaway joke. Cartoon characters say stuff like this all the time. But that line stuck with people because she said she'd have to start over in a new town with a new identity, and then not again. That one phrase cracked something open for fans. What do you mean, not again? What do you mean, not again? What do you mean, not again? Over time, people started noticing strange little details in the show, hints that maybe Mrs. Puff wasn't who she said she was. Turns out, there's more than one hint in the show that something shady went down in her past. One of the biggest clues shows up in Lighthouse Louie from season 12. We get a peek into her private lighthouse, basically a hoarder's storage bunker, and right in the middle of the chaos, a file folder labeled Mrs. Puff. Not student records, just her, like she's keeping a file on herself. That's already weird, but it gets better, because in the same episode, for just a blink, you can catch a newspaper headline buried in the clutter. Boat teacher makes getaway. Let me say that again. Boat teacher makes getaway. That's a literal newspaper clipping hidden in the background, implying Mrs. Puff fled a previous life. And the cherry on top? The article is from the New Kelp Post, Bikini Bottom's neighboring city. So now we have a character using what is possibly a fake name, a documented escape from a different town, and actual in-universe evidence of a crime. That's when the theory started to snowball. What if Mrs. Puff isn't just SpongeBob's stressed-out boating teacher? What if she's a fugitive? Now, of course, I won't be talking about this theory too much since this isn't one of my solved series. Maybe I'll talk about it in the future, but in short, the theory goes like this. Years ago in New Kelp City, Mrs. Puff ran a different boating school, but she made a fatal mistake. She gave a license to a student who wasn't ready, a student who caused real destruction, maybe even something worse. Some versions of the theory go pretty dark, suggesting people were hurt, maybe even killed. And Mrs. Puff? She covered it up, then vanished, faked her identity, moved to Bikini Bottom, and started a new life. Until fate and SpongeBob caught up with her. A constant, painful reminder of her original failure. A walking punishment she can never escape. Here's where things get even stranger. The show kind of plays along. Mrs. Puff is constantly shown suffering mental breakdowns. She ends up in prison over and over, usually for crimes SpongeBob caused, and when she finally gets peace, it's behind bars. She's smiling, because prison is the only place where she finally feels safe. Now, of course, none of this is official. The show never confirms any of it. It's all built from scraps of details, hidden jokes, and overthinking. But hey, that's the power of the internet. A theory doesn't need to be canon, it just needs to make too much sense. Ironically, for this topic, this whole theory with her proves one point. The fans get so irritated with her role as a teacher with PTSD, and since the show rarely gives her moments to deepen her lore, fans just tried to make sense of her by trying to understand what makes her like this in the first place. That's why she's become so controversial. And if that wasn't enough, the modern seasons found a way to make things even worse. Because now, it's not just the past that fans are upset about, it's her present. And what the show keeps doing to her again and again and again. So after everything she's been through, where does that leave Mrs. Puff now? What even is her role anymore? Well, she still shows up in modern SpongeBob, but almost never as the focus. And when she does, it's usually just for another round of suffering. You'd think after 100+ failed tests, SpongeBob would be banned from the road permanently, or at least suspended from school, like any other student would be. But nope, every episode, he's back in the boat, destroying public property, risking lives, laughing through it all. And Mrs. Puff just has to take it. There's one episode, Bumper to Bumper, where she says,
"If he took the driving test somewhere besides the driving course, he would pass."
But unfortunately, I'm reminded of the consequences if I get too angry with the little nuisance. So now there are consequences for reacting to SpongeBob? As if she's the only one who's in the wrong for being traumatized? What kind of system is this? This is the part that made a lot of fans turn on the writers, because at some point, it stopped being funny. They kept breaking her without giving her anything in return. She doesn't even get less screen time. She just lingers, episode after episode, stuck in the same miserable loop. And that's where a new conversation started online. You'll see it on Reddit, on forums, even in YouTube comment sections. People are asking, why is she still in the show? Simply out of fatigue. Fans have gotten tired of watching her suffer. Some even say if she disappeared from the show tomorrow, it wouldn't change anything. Like she's become background noise for someone else's comedy. And yeah, the show did try to give her something more. A long-running relationship with Mr. Krabs, starting from the early seasons all the way to now. But even that barely changed anything. It's just there. Another status quo that never goes anywhere. For a character who started as a joke, now she's turning into something even more strange. A ghost. Still present, but barely part of the story anymore. Still alive, but narratively kind of already gone. And that's what makes her sad fate so unique and so controversial. She's stuck in time, frozen between who she used to be and a version of her that the show just doesn't know how to update. So why does Mrs. Puff spark so much controversy? Is it the trauma, the jail time, the criminal theories? Sure, all of that adds fuel to the fire. But the real reason is that nobody can agree on what she's even supposed to be anymore. A tragic adult figure, a symbol of burnout, or just a punching bag the writers won't retire. Ask 10 fans what they think of her, you'll get 10 different answers. Some feel bad for her, some think she deserves better. Some think she should have been written out years ago. And that's exactly why she's controversial. Still, that's more than you can say for most characters in Bikini Bottom, because as it turns out, not every case of agreement turns out to be good either. In my last video, we talked about an episode so hated by the fans, all of them wish it never existed. Go watch that next, and join the hate train for modern SpongeBob. I'll see you on the next dive.